mean, obviously speaking on it and being on the front, do you have any aspirations of being a political figure?
I like pussy and liquor too much.
So out of nowhere, DL Hughley just dropped a bombshell that's got comedy fans clutching their microphones like, what did he just say? You're telling me Steve Harvey, the motivational Uncle Meets Family feud host himself, wanted Bernie Mac, the people's champ, gone? Nah, this ain't your regular celebrity tea. This is vintage betrayal, wrapped in Hollywood smiles and shiny suits. DL isn't whispering this in a podcast corner either. He said it straight up, loud, proud, and with receipts that got the internet foaming at the mouth. Behind those synchronized laughs on the original Kings of Comedy was apparently a whole power struggle. Ego wars, shade battles, and jealous glances in custom-tailored suits. And it's the kind of mess that makes you realize sometimes brotherhood in Hollywood comes with a PR contract attached. But here's where it gets wild. DL's not just revisiting old drama for clicks. He's exposing what he calls the unspoken truth about the Kings, how loyalty crumbled when money and fame showed up to the party. Because when DL Hughley, one of the actual Kings, calls out Steve Harvey by name, you know this ain't gossip. It's history being rewritten in real time. But buckle up, because this story doesn't just peel back layers. It rips the crown off. And trust me, what comes next, you're not ready for it.
Interesting things, and I think about this all the time, is from the time Bernie passed till now, certainly I think society has changed, the way they digest entertainment has changed. So I think it would have been difficult. I think a lot of people would have had a hard time with some of the things that Bernie said and tended to the things in his act. So
Bernie said in the GQ article that when he got Ocean's 11, Steve had reached out to the producers and said he thought he would be a better fit and tried to get the part and blah, blah, blah. And that was some shit that,
Behind those million-dollar smiles and matching suits, the Kings of Comedy weren't exactly ruling in peace. Turns out, the throne came with drama, dark drama, the kind you can't polish with a motivational quote. DL's basically saying that what looked like unity on stage was Hollywood camouflage. Think about it. 4 legendary comedians selling out arenas, redefining comedy, all while pretending everything was love and laughs. But behind the curtain, it was less brotherhood and more Game of Thrones with microphones. And here's the twist. DL doesn't just drag Steve's name. He digs into how entertainment itself changed since Bernie passed. Society got sensitive, cancel culture came out swinging, and raw truth-tellers like Bernie, they'd have a hard time surviving in this sanitized, PR-polished world. Back then, Bernie said the stuff everyone else was too scared to say. His jokes weren't tweets for approval, they were therapy sessions for the real ones. But DL's tone? It's got that regret baked in. Like he knows the world that once celebrated Bernie's fearlessness would now try to censor it. So imagine Steve Harvey watching all this unfold, his squeaky clean image rising, while Bernie's brand of truth-telling fades into too controversial for prime time. It makes you wonder, did Steve see the shift coming? Did he position himself as the safe one while Bernie stayed raw? Because DL's basically saying the laughs were real, but so was the jealousy hiding underneath. And that's just the surface. Because next, DL starts pulling receipts that flip the whole story inside out.
Do you consider yourself a king of comedy?
After Bernie left, them same 3 guys I'm telling you about, the Kings, right? Because DL is the greatest. There's no DL slander gets tolerated. They came to me. I was supposed to be the 4th king. I got the offer,
Then what happened?
but I turned it down.
Why?
Because you shit on Bernie, and I know the truth. You think I'm gonna let you shit on Bernie and then come get me? I'm the next king? Fuck you. Why? Because the whole time Bernie was here, you was acting like you was funnier than him. The reason you was supposed to go last is because it was your tour. Not it was gonna be called the King's Comedy, it was Steve's tour. These are the guys opening for him. That's why it was such a big deal. But you couldn't do it, because you can't beat the best. And until you humble yourself, you will forever be kinged by the king. You stop it. That man was funnier than all of y'all, and y'all thought y'all had one over on him. You thought he was black and ugly, and you were good looking, and he couldn't make it, because you did. And that ain't the way comedy works. The king is the funniest.
Hold up. Steve Harvey tried to take Bernie Mac's movie role? Oh, we're diving into Hollywood heist territory. Forget Ocean's 11. This sounds more like Egos 101. See, according to DL, when Bernie locked in that role in Ocean's 11, Steve allegedly slid into the producer's DMs, or, well, their landlines back then, basically saying, hey, I'd be a better fit. Bruh. That's like your friend landing their dream job and you immediately calling HR like, actually, I'm taller and I smile better. And DL didn't mince words, he called it straight shade in a suit. Because that moment exposed the truth about the kings of comedy dynamic. It wasn't about unity, it was about survival of the funniest. Bernie wasn't just another comedian, he was that rare mix of street smart, soulful, and fearless. He made you laugh, but he also made you uncomfortable, and that's what made him legendary. Steve, on the other hand, was all about structure, image, control, brand management before Instagram even existed. So imagine Bernie thriving in Hollywood, getting cast in major films, building his name, while Steve's watching that happen, thinking, wait, that's supposed to be me. That's not just competition, that's envy wrapped in applause. And here's where it gets even colder. DL's basically saying that this Ocean's 11 incident wasn't a one-time thing. It was pattern behavior. Steve wasn't just fighting for the spotlight, he wanted to control who else stood in it. That one line says everything. It's not about fit, it's about fear. Fear of being outshined. And when you've got 4 kings but only 1 crown, somebody's bound to swing first. But DL's story doesn't stop at movie roles. He starts revealing how deep that rivalry really went. And trust me, it's about to get petty, personal, and public. Because the next clip, DL's not hinting anymore. He's naming names and calling out fake brotherhood for what it really was.
We had a Steve Harvey show, so we had a national TV show. Bernie Mac was the hit comedian at the time, and then DL was hot. He had a TV. We did it. It was just me, Bernie, and Steve. Right. And Steve closed.
One time we were playing Kings of Comedy, and we were in Dallas, and I was in, we got suites, and I was in the bedroom, and I hear the door open. And I go, hey man, you in the wrong room. I said, I'm sorry. And he said, oh man, I'm sorry. And he kept moving around. I'm like, who is that? He said, who is that? I said, motherfucker, you in my room. And this was, who the fuck you talking to? I grab a gun and I walk into the room, and Bernie has a gun standing. I'm like, and we both just start laughing. And I'm like, only you.
And there it is. D.L. Hughley finally ripped the mask off. He said it plain, it wasn't brotherhood. It was ego dressed up as love bruh. That line alone hit harder than a Netflix docu-series intro. According to D.L., the kings of comedy was never a kingdom. It was a coliseum. Everyone was smiling for the cameras but secretly keeping score backstage. And you can feel that sting in his voice when he talks about being offered the 4th king spot after Bernie left. DL said he turned it down, not out of pride, but out of principle. Because how are you going to disrespect a man in death and then turn around like, hey, next up? He literally said, you, expletive on Bernie, and now you want me. That's loyalty. That's real. That's the kind of energy people rarely bring to Hollywood anymore. And that's what makes this part sting so bad. Because if DL's telling the truth, it means that what the public thought was a brotherhood, 4 black men uplifting each other in a space that rarely celebrates them, might have actually been a silent war for the spotlight. That phrase, envy dressed up as love, that's poetry and pain. Because jealousy in showbiz doesn't always show its teeth. Sometimes it smiles in a designer suit, cracks a joke, and takes your seat at the interview table. DL's saying Steve wasn't just competing, he was maneuvering. Power plays behind the scenes, polished in public, ruthless in private. And think about it. If you've ever seen Steve and Bernie together on stage, you can feel the tension. It's subtle, but it's there. Bernie's raw, Steve's polished. One lives for laughs, the other for legacy. That's oil and water. So when DL refused to replace Bernie, that was his silent protest. His way of saying, you can't rewrite the crown without the king. But here's the part that really got fans spiraling on X and TikTok. If DL turned down the crown, who picked it up? Who benefited from Bernie's absence? Because in every story about betrayal, there's always someone who profits from the silence. And next, DL starts peeling back exactly what was happening on that tour. Contracts, cuts, and cold moves made behind closed doors. You might think you've heard this story before, but the next part, it changes everything.
Like basketball player.
You talk about being a witness to it. Let's go back to Kings of Comedy, though, real quick, because I was in Chicago on the Steve Harvey show when it was kind of the reunion special. with you
about
guys.
4 or 5 years ago, yeah.
And you guys talked about what it meant to be on that stage at that time, really putting a stake in the ground for what not just excellent comedians look like, but what also Black excellence, right, could look like. Knowing that Bernie didn't get to, experience the reunion with you guys, how do y'all still keep in touch?
Well, Steve and I talk all the time, and Sid and I talk, so we're very close and still keep in touch. Now, obviously, we miss Bernie.
Now this is where the story stops being funny and starts sounding like a corporate takeover. DL said, "When the money started rolling in, everything changed, and you can feel it. That moment when something pure turns political." Bernie Mac was the heart of the Kings of Comedy. The fans didn't show up for the contracts or the billing order. They showed up because Bernie made them feel something real. He didn't compete, he commanded. When Bernie stepped on stage, the crowd wasn't watching a routine, they were watching a man testify through laughter. He didn't need smoke machines, intros, or ego trips. His rhythm, his truth, his timing, that was the show. But DL says once the money got serious, so did the egos. That's when Steve allegedly started acting different. Not cracking jokes, cracking calculations. Who's on the posters first? Who gets the prime hotel suite? Who closes the show? See, in entertainment, billing order isn't just about names, it's about status. Whoever closes the night is the king, and if you're Steve Harvey watching Bernie walk away with the crowd every night, that's not just a bruise, that's a branding problem. DL paints a picture of a brotherhood that started breaking apart under the weight of its own success. The same laughter that built them started dividing them. And if you listen close to DL's tone, there's no hate, just disappointment. Because Bernie wasn't trying to outshine anyone, he was just being Bernie, unfiltered, untamed, and unforgettable. But in a room full of egos, authenticity is dangerous. It threatens structure, it challenges control. So when DL says Steve started moving different, that's code. It means the politics crept in, the handshakes, the phone calls, the subtle plays to stay on top. What started as four brothers changing comedy history became a chessboard. And Bernie? He was the only one who refused to play the game, and that refusal cost him. But what happened next took everything from backstage whispers to public betrayal. Because in the next clip, DL exposes how that tension spilled off stage. It's easy to see how the glow started to fade, and the way Bernie's name was started getting erased, but something behind it cracked. People thought the Kings of Comedy were untouchable, but every crown comes with cracks, and every spotlight burns a little too hot. Backstage, jokes turned into strategy meetings. Everyone claimed to be brothers, but you could feel the divide creeping in like a slow leak in a luxury car. Quiet at first, until everything starts drifting off course. Bernie kept doing what he always did, telling stories that made people feel human. He didn't care about the business chessboard, he just wanted to perform. That honesty became his weapon, and, ironically, his weakness. The more real he was, the more calculated the world around him became. Executives love numbers more than souls, and Bernie was a soul performer trapped in a numbers game. Fans noticed. Old interviews resurfaced, side-eye clips got shared, and suddenly the narrative of friendly competition turned into who's jealous of who. Social media, even back then, magnified every word. A side comment from one comedian became a headline for another. People began piecing together timelines, reading expressions, catching micro moments that looked innocent but weren't. It wasn't just about who closed the show anymore, it was about legacy. Every appearance, every talk show booking, every laugh became a silent contest for history's memory. And DL's recent comments ripped that old wound wide open. His tone wasn't malicious, it sounded like regret mixed with truth fatigue. You could hear years of watching the story get rewritten. He wasn't trying to drag anyone, he was trying to set the record straight before it faded completely. The internet, of course, did what it always does. TikTok edits popped up overnight, split screens of Bernie's performances next to Steve's interviews, captions reading, "Spot the difference." Reddit threads went deep, analyzing body language, sharing old tour footage, connecting the smallest dots like digital detectives. Some fans defended Steve, saying the industry pits black men against each other. Others said said ego doesn't need help, it grows all on its own. But the heart of this drama isn't villain versus hero. It's about how fame mutates friendships. Imagine building an empire with people you love, only to realize the empire itself has started owning you. That's what DL hinted at. The Kings became a brand, and brands have no emotions. They only have bottom lines. Bernie's passing made it all heavier. After he was gone, silence filled the gaps he used to occupy. Tributes poured in, but so did what-ifs. People began rewatching his old interviews, the ones where he smiled but seemed tired, the ones where he said he didn't always feel the same love back. Those clips aged like prophecy. And now, DL's confession gives those moments a whole new shadow. Still, this isn't about dragging memories through the mud. It's about reflection, because what's happening now isn't new. Every era of entertainment has its unspoken rivalries, its quiet heartbreaks hidden behind laughter tracks. The audience only sees the punchline. The pain gets edited out. DL just peeled back a curtain that was never meant to be opened. You can feel how raw this story still is. Every word he says lands like a sigh, years in the making. There's no denial, no dramatic flourish, just truth, delivered the way comedians do best, through rhythm and honesty. And maybe that's why people are finally listening. It's not gossip when it comes from grief. Steve, on the other hand, hasn't responded directly, at least not in a way that clears the air. That silence has become its own kind of answer. The longer it lingers, the more fans fill in the blanks. Some call it respect, others call it avoidance. Either way, the conversation has outgrown the men themselves. It's now about how Hollywood handles brotherhood, how success quietly asks you to pick sides. The sad irony, they built something that changed culture forever. The Kings of Comedy broke barriers, opened doors, and made millions laugh through pain. But the same legacy that united them also divided them. That's the cruel math of fame. It multiplies money and subtracts trust. And now we're left with the echoes. DL remembering, Steve staying quiet, Bernie immortalized, Cedric caught in the middle of nostalgia and reality. Every fan debate online becomes a remix of that old tour energy. Loud, funny, but layered with tension nobody fully understands. People are saying this could have been avoided if pride hadn't entered the room. But pride always shows up uninvited when applause gets too loud. Once you start measuring laughs instead of sharing them, the chemistry shifts. And by the time you notice, the bond you built your name on has already started to fracture. So here we are in 2025, still dissecting what went wrong 20 years ago. That says something. It says the truth never really dies. It just waits for the right mic to pick it up. DL finally said what many whispered. And maybe, just maybe, that confession gives fans closure, even if it reopens old scars for the people who lived it. But let's be real, this isn't just their story. Every industry, every friend group, every creative circle has its version of this. Someone feeling overshadowed, someone chasing validation, someone staying silent to keep the peace. The difference is that when comedians feud, the punchlines write themselves, and maybe that's the most tragic part. The Kings of Comedy taught us to laugh at life's pain, but behind that laughter was the same pain they were teaching us to survive. The audience got the jokes, they got the exhaustion. And DL's latest reveal? It's not scandal, it's closure wearing controversy's mask. Still, fans can't help but wonder, if Bernie were alive today, would things be different? Would the tour have reunited? Would the friendship have healed? Would the story have ended with laughter instead of silence? We'll never know. But judging from how much this conversation still burns up the internet, maybe that mystery is what keeps their legend alive. Because legends don't fade, they echo. Every clip, every interview, every uncomfortable truth adds another layer to the myth. And maybe that's the real legacy, not perfection, but humanity. Messy, loud, funny, flawed humanity. At the end of the day, these weren't gods. They were men trying to navigate fame, friendship, and the fine line between loyalty and ambition. And DL's words remind us that no matter how high you climb, the climb always changes you. Some people grow stronger, others grow separate. So as the internet keeps debating who was right, who was wrong, and who deserved the spotlight, maybe the real takeaway is this. Behind every joke is a wound, and behind every legend is a story nobody was brave enough to tell until now. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think DL was right to finally speak up, or should some truth stay buried with the past? Drop your thoughts below, because this one isn't just history, it's still unfolding. And don't go anywhere. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more juicy celebrity chaos, betrayals, and stories Hollywood doesn't want you to know. See you in the next one.